Hey guys, me again. Watch out, this is becoming a habit. What is this, episode 6? Ooh, I'm begloved. And I got a fancy new mask. So this is episode 6, update 6. And I just wanted to kind of check in, tell you what's going on this week. Every week, things move. The needle is moving very slowly at this point. Like I said, each week was going to get more difficult. I talked a lot about reopening in the past and this bringing a lot of questions regarding how we're going to handle this. Obviously, I'm concerned about the well being of my customers. I want everyone to stay healthy. And I'm also concerned about my own well being and those of my loved ones. So, we're in the process of trying to figure things out. This whole talk of a grand economic reopening, though, I think is a little bit sort of far fetched. It's going to be sort of a slow crawl the way it's looking. And I can understand people might have some trepidation. But I mean, people go to the grocery store, there's a lot of people out there. So, what is likely going to happen at this point that we're sort of thinking is that just like everywhere you go, if you come here, you will, once these restrictions are lifted, you'll probably be required to wear a mask, required to wear gloves of some kind. I may have some sort of hand sanitizing station if I can find hand sanitizer anywhere in the Western world. Definitely try and address that situation. And then also probably limiting the number of people in here to a time at a time. It's not a very large space, so maybe two or three at a time. And if you happen to show up and there's people in here, you may have to wait your turn. I may also be limiting the amount of time spent. I don't want to have to get to having to take people's temperature when they enter the room. I would like to hope that everyone can sort of like police themselves enough to know if they're not feeling well, but you know, that's probably too much of a leap. So we'll see. I don't want to make it so it's a completely unenjoyable experience. This whole venture so far has been about providing people with an enjoyable experience, and that kind of takes it to a place that I'm not really. I don't know what I feel about that. Anyway, so one thing that I have been in talks with other business people is coming up with some sort of like sneeze guard shield or something. I've seen places that have used plastic curtains. I've seen places that have used plexiglass shields. I hear plexiglass is better because if you clean it, it doesn't smear everywhere. I'm kind of thinking what would be nice would be sort of a thin, uh, rigid, sort of clear shield that can be. I don't know if any of you people out there who know us and know this counter area are familiar with it and you want to come up with something, be my guest. I will definitely accept any ideas that you may have. And if you just show up with something that's, 3, 4 feet wide that'll cover my counter area, bless you. I am not the most ingenious when it comes to making things. There are several wonderful crates on top of my racks in here that are quite nice looking, and I will give credit mainly to my father for that. I'm good with finding the mark, doing the screwing, or whatever there needs to be done, but don't ask me to, you know, saw a bunch of wood apart into certain sizes because I don't know if I got the carpenter gene, to be quite honest. But Anyway, that's sort of a digression. But there are things, other things too. Like there's been all this talk lately about air conditioners blowing air around in Chinese restaurants. I mean, is air conditioning kind of the same idea no matter where in the world you are? I guess there's some variations, but I don't want to be sort of a trapped audience where air conditioning is blowing virus around, but I also don't necessarily want to leave the door open when it's 95 degrees out and sweltering in the summer. So I think if bringing a fan is probably just as bad because it's just going to blow whatever it is. So I think the mask and gloves are going to probably be the norm for a little while, a long while maybe. Um, so in regards to Record Store Day, we're so far it's still scheduled for June 20th. Haven't heard otherwise. And there was an email that apparently went out to people who are on the Record Store Day list that said that stores will be providing in-store shopping and or curbside pickup. I thought, well, that's interesting because I haven't really asked any of the stores, to my knowledge, maybe some of the bigger ones, what they would like to do or are able to do. So this is another thing that we will have to address. I'm sort of leaning towards possibly doing something more organized. And by that I mean having some sort of, instead of waiting in line where everybody is exposing their germs to each other, having some type of email system, and you get your place in line and send us the list of what you're looking for, and then we pick it and fill it for you. You show up at a prescribed time that we will email you back as verification, and then you'll have to give us like your license plate or make and model of car. I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out how to find your car, but and then accept your payment that way just by running it to and from the store or something like that. I don't know. Since we don't operate on the Square system, I'm not really sure exactly what we'll do. But I definitely want to try and keep the line thing sort of out of the picture. And I kind of am fearful that people will just show up and form a line if they don't know that we are not doing things that way. So if whatever plan we come up with, I will try and make sure that people are aware of it far enough in advance that you can sort of plan how you're going to do it, and hopefully the word will get out. It's also kind of tricky because I'm kind of at a loss of how to handle the product and the orders. I did do a very generous order when this whole thing was starting, and then they said that we'll hold your orders, but you are always able to change and modify the order. And as we get closer to the date, I'm sort of wondering, well, how many people are going to come out because they don't want to be around a bunch of other people? How many people are going to come out because maybe they are out of work? And I don't know, some people I've heard who are unemployed and collecting unemployment are actually doing better than they were when they were working. I am not one of those people. So it's kind of hard to tell. I don't want to shortchange people on the choices that, I mean, we usually have quite a bit of product here. Obviously, it's like our biggest day of the year usually. So I don't want to have Record Store Day become something that people dislike because of a bad experience because of a pandemic and it just was a fluke year or something. I certainly don't want to handle it this way every year, but stay tuned and I'll try to keep you posted there. All right, finally, I sort of wanted to kind of just touch on some product issues as far as like release schedules and things like that. I've sort of mentioned some things before, but This coming week, well, we just had Lucinda Williams just released an album. There were a couple medium-sized releases this week. Hers is getting extremely high praise from critics, like saying it's her best in 20 years. The other one that came out that's been kind of interesting was the Glenn Danzig covers Elvis album. Um, but next week we have the new car seat headrest, which is still on schedule as far as I know. The Built to Spill covering Daniel Johnston and Man Man's record, which they have, it's been a long time for them. The interesting thing is the next week, May 8th, Jason Isbell, who I'd mentioned before, there was talk of him shifting the date of his record. Well, it was originally scheduled for May 15th. And then Jason apparently stepped forward and decided to do something really cool, which is kind of the opposite of what all of the other artists have been doing. Everybody's been sort of taking their records and pushing them back. He's like, I'm pulling it forward a week for independent stores to give them a little bit of a boost and help them out during a really difficult time. So Jason will have a limited version for independent stores. We should have that and this vinyl and CD on May 8th. There's also Mark Lanigan coming out that day. The following week, May 15th, Bon Jovi has a record. Hamilton Lighthouser and Perfume Genius. There's a few things. May 22nd, 1975, and Steve Earle. The 29th was originally supposed to be the Killers album. Apparently that's been delayed, sort of like the Lady Gaga and the Dixie Chicks have both been delayed sort of indefinitely. We don't really know when those are coming. There were some Prince reissues that had been scheduled for April that are now coming out supposedly May 29th. Those are the Rainbow Children, and then there's I think 3 or 4 live albums. So and then going into June, we have Norah Jones, Phoebe Bridgers on the 16th. That was originally scheduled for May. Yo-Yo Ma and Chris Teal, another one of those sort of Appalachia albums. The big thing that was just announced, June 26th, there's a Rolling Stones 10-inch for their new song, something about like a ghost town, living in a ghost town, I think. Then we have July 3rd, Sparks, which was originally scheduled for May. I think it's still going to be digital streaming May 15th. CD and vinyl July 3rd. Pretenders also in that period. Margot Price July 10th. These are all things that have been delayed 2 months. July 17th is the big one. That's the Fiona Apple that a lot of people have been wanting. That's the vinyl and the CD. So that'll be a good mid-July release. And other things in this period, Paul Weller, Tim Burgess of Charlatans. August 21st, they just announced that new X album, their first in 35 years. And into September, you get Alanis Morissette, Jarvis Cocker, and Liam Gallagher live. All 3 albums were scheduled in April and May, and they got pushed back. Lastly, Laura Marling and Fish. We still don't have word on exactly when those are coming out. So Iggy Pop is happy. Iggy wants you. He says, my box set is coming out. Was supposed to be May, now it's July 3rd. So it's Iggy's Bowie years. I think it's just a CD though. 7 CDs if you want. There's lots of live stuff and everything. But all right, so I think that's long enough. Hope that gives you a little bit of an update. If these are going to keep being fireside chats, I obviously need to work on getting a fire at some point. I really don't want a fire in the store, but maybe I could put a digital fire behind me. Although most people probably are like, yeah, we'd rather look at Stevie and Lindsay up there, or the purple one right there. Here, I hope you saw his tribute special on the Grammys this week. It's on demand on CBS right now. It's fantastic. Some were better than others, but it was a lot of fun to see Beck and St. Vincent take Swipe. Oh, and the Foo Fighters, Darling Nikki was pretty cool. But I still think Philip Bailey really killed it on that Earth, Wind, and Fire, on his cover of Adore with Earth, Wind, and Fire. It was just stunning. The last few nights, and of course Sheila E. brought down the house at the end. The Revolution was amazing. Anyway, catch that. And if you saw the Jersey concert, Bruce was great. I mean, is Bruce ever bad? Can't remember a time. So anyway, thanks a lot. Have a great week. Maybe you'll hear from me again next week. Unless the economy all of a sudden opens up and I'm too busy and I just can't do another one of these. Oh no! Have a great week.